What's happening, everyone? And welcome to another episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk with yours, Kwame Fisher Jones. As always, I am him, and I'm talking NFL, so I got to be joined by my man Chris Franklin of NJ.com. Chris, we had a great pre-show meeting here, so this should probably make for a good show because we are on the complete opposite of two very, very polarizing topics. But first, we're going to start out with a curveball. The cheetah, Tyreek Hill, was released by the Miami Dolphins. I don't think there was a surprise to anybody. You're in NFL circles. I think you would agree with me on that. It wasn't a surprise. However, where he may wind up, I think is going to surprise people. Now, what are the rumors you're hearing? Where do you think he's going to wind up?
Well, the main thing I'm hearing right now, and everybody's looking directly at the Chiefs right now, because when you look at the explosiveness that offense had, it lacked it last year. You saw they had to rely on Hollywood Brown. You saw they initially, you just looking around at some of the other guys, and you're just like, it just lacked it there. And so they had to rely more on Travis Kelce. It was a domino effect. And we all know what the Chiefs offense did in those issues. Now you're looking at Tyreek Hill. He's coming off that injury. It was towards ACL.
Yeah.
He coming off that injury, very, very significant for a wide receiver that with the speed he has. And then you're also looking at his age as well, too. He's 31 years old for a wide receiver. And you're starting to look at it all together. He'll have some fillers. He's still a very explosive guy. I mean, he's a 5-time All-Pro. You know, he can make plays. Everybody's looking towards the Chiefs. And Andy Reid spoke the other day, and he didn't discount saying, no, he's never coming back. But at the time when he spoke, he didn't seem like he was really thrilled. But then all of a sudden, you have this ESPN report that comes out that states they're keeping a watchful eye on what happens. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that he eventually resigns after they check that knee and go through that. And then you start to hear reports saying Patrick Mahomes was the one there pushing for Tyreek Hill to come back, what have you, too.
Yeah.
So that's where it stands right now. I could see them. I could see the Bills. I could see trying to make a run at him. I think he's better going to go to a warmer weather team. I know he played, that's saying a lot with Kansas City, but I see that, the Chargers potentially, the LA Lights,
There you
concerning about Keenan
go.
Allen with that.
There you go. There you go. All right. So I wasn't surprised he was released. And I first thought Eric Bieniemy going back to the Chargers. They're going to bring the gang together. They're going to make it happen. Now, though, I don't believe he had, excuse me, the Chiefs. I gave it away. Eric Bieniemy back to the Chiefs. They're going to get the gang back together. The Temptations were going to come together. They're going to make it happen. Mahomes gets his deep threat and thing. But the Chargers make sense. You can check this out because I don't know where they are money wise, but I think Patrick Mahomes reworking his deal is with the anticipation that they can throw a boatload of money at Tyreek Hill. But if the money's comparable, I'm just saying here, if the money's comparable, if the Chiefs aren't willing to pony up more, I don't see why he wouldn't go join Mike McDaniels with Justin Herbert, Jim Harbaugh, and Los Angeles. Whereas you've been to Kansas City, been there, done that. The money's comparable. Yeah, you can have all the success in the world with Kansas City, but going into next year, I think you would agree with me. I don't think anyone believes the Kansas City Chiefs are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think they believe Patrick Mahomes will be back and he'll be better than ever, but they're probably a year away from being a Super Bowl contender. So I'm not going to say they have a down year, but it's not like they're going to be in the Super Bowl. The Chargers aren't going to be in the Super Bowl next year either, but they can have a good year. And a good year for the Chargers is AFC title game, is winning the division. You may your only eyes. I just think that the bar is lower for the Chargers. The opportunity for success is more with the Chargers because remember, Patrick Mahomes is coming back off an injury. He is, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. He's coming off a very serious injury, and even before the injury, he was looking like he needed to revamp his game. Not saying I still think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. It's not even, he's in room A, everyone else in room C or D. Like, that's not the debate here. But the argument I'm making, or the point I'm trying to make, is he was going to need to adjust his game because the Eagles kind of exposed him in the Super Bowl. And then coming back, Travis Kelce was their only threat. They needed to make some moves around him. There were some throws that weren't happening. They weren't connecting. Things were off. Things were awry. I don't think circling the block with Tyreek Hill is going to change that. So if it's Tyreek Hill, you're looking like, Tyreek Hill. The Chargers ain't a bad move. If the money's comparable, that's the big thing. The money's comparable. If the Chargers are offering more than the Chiefs, then yeah. But if it's 1-on-1, if it's right there, I would think he'd go back to the Chiefs. But I actually think he's going to wind up in San Diego / Los Angeles. What say you?
And here's the thing too. You mentioned that the Chiefs, they can, like you mentioned, they can save $22 million. They restructure. And that's why I love these quarterback deals. You can restructure them always, give them the money up front. If you have the cash on hand, you just go, yeah, we got cash space, we're good to go. But you're right, because also there's another thing. You mentioned that the Chargers effective cash, which is basically like the money you get after you have to sign your draft class, whatever. It's third highest, $78 million they have free space. But there's one thing they
Chargers?
have to worry about too. Khalil Mack. He's a free agent. You want to worry about your defense and your edge rusher? That's I see that. And the reason why you mentioned Chargers, I think is another reason why I think it's a great fit that you mentioned them. You look at Amari and Hampton, and he's the one thing I think you can really utilize a speed guy for is when you have a good running game
Running back,
and
yeah.
you complement that with the play action pass because we've seen these teams now are using a too high shell. They don't want to get beat. If you see Tyreek Hill out there, you definitely don't want to beat. So they're going to play that two
Yeah.
man safety, the too high safety.
Like a five
Now all
man
of a
high.
sudden, yeah, you remember the Megatron stuff they used to do with him with the goal
Yeah.
line? At that point, it's like we ain't gonna let him beat us. But you look at that, and since you have that too high, you need those safeties to come down and respect the run. And one thing Jim Harbaugh likes to do is when he has the offensive line, which they need to address too, and you have the running back already, the play action pass is there all day,
Yeah.
and adding that threat to there be crazy. And he was in Miami, partying himself. LA, they're going to have to overpay, I think, in a little bit just because of the whole taxing. You're going from a place where you didn't have no income tax to wow, state income tax, apologies, to you're going to California.
Yeah. 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 I
That's
know.
tough.
I know. I know. I
Just so
know.
you know, yeah.
I know. The cost of living, just tax just for living. Living is expensive. Another reason why I consider charges, it's just it makes and like we both agree, the money's gonna have to be, the money's gonna have to be formidable. Like he's gonna have to really they put it out. But we mentioned Khalil Mack. I forgot Khalil Mack played for Los Angeles. Like outside of Justin Herbert, you got to be a football. You got to be a football guru or football analyst to know what they got going on in Los Angeles. They're not. So the reason I bring that up is he left Miami. He left Kansas City the first time for them, and they didn't win. No bones about it. They just didn't win. The Chargers are having success under Jim Harbaugh. They're getting better. You've got a younger quarterback, you've got a younger team, and you've got this kind of anonymity where they are anonymity. I said that right. Where they're under the radar. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows your name. Nobody knows your face. All they know is that they call you Mr. Scarface. Like that's it. It's completely under the radar. That means something. Now I don't. The tax situation is huge and we don't know how far along, or we don't know the relationship between Patrick Mahomes, Eric Bieniemy, and Tyreek Hill. That's also something that I'm overlooking. So as I say that, I'm not going to say it's unlikely he winds in Kansas City, but I actually think he's going to take. I actually think he's going to wind up in Los Angeles. I really do. And whew, you got Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs. The Raiders ain't got a shot in hell of ever being good again. All right. Speaking of being good again, I want to transition to a debate that we had on a debate that I saw on LeSean McCoy and DeSean Jackson's podcast that they do. And if you get a chance, I want to say it's all 22, but I could be wrong. You get a chance, you grab the name of that podcast so I give it this proper introduction. But LeSean McCoy, all-time NFL great, future Hall of Famer, made a comment to DeSean Jackson, all-time great, who should be a future Hall of Famer, that his career running back was better than DeSean's at wide receiver. And at first glance, I mean, you got like there were few running backs that were as shifty as LeSean McCoy. Like the first one that comes to mind is obviously Barry Sanders. Outside of that, I can't think of any other running back that made people miss the way LeSean McCoy did. That comes to mind. I mean, Jamal Charles is a straight shot runner. Jamal Lewis is a straight shot runner. Maybe Marshall Falk. I don't know Marshall
Yeah.
Falk. Yeah, yeah.
In open
I don't.
space, he was decent. He's decent
Yeah,
in open space.
Well, he was decent before he caught the ball too, which was, he could run routes like a wide receiver. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But Sean McCoy is obviously in the picture. So the big question is where DeSean Jackson falls in pecking order for wide receivers. And for a decade, it was Randy Moss and DeSean Jackson at deep threats and wide receiver. There was nobody else. Like, there are guys that had good seasons, but year in and year out, probably Randy Moss and DeSean Jackson. And when DeSean leaves the Eagles and he goes to Washington, who's the Washington Redskins quarterback at that time? I don't even remember.
Oh,
Exactly. It'll come to you, but you get the point. And then he,
this is
and then he goes to Tampa Bay, famous Jameis and his 62 interceptions a year. And then he winds up back in Philly. You know, I just feel like LeSean goes to Buffalo. He's all they got. He's playing in the bad weather. That helped him. Not saying he needed help, but that helped him. And then he goes to Tampa. And I know he says he was on the team. Other than a trading card, I don't remember seeing LeSean McCoy ever take the field in Tampa at all. I mean, you can help me out on that one. I don't remember seeing him take the field at all. So I feel like LeSean may have been maybe better, but not as much as he thinks. What say you?
well, a couple of things. The podcast is the 2510 show that will start on that one. The second one is, and I forgot about this part. It was the gear that they split between RG3 and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
And the third one is, we forgot that was the first Sean McVay offense. He was the offensive coordinator in 2014 because Jay Gruden
You
was
said that was
coach.
the first Sean McVay offense.
It
Dude,
was.
I've told you this 10,000 times. I am not up on Sean McVay like that. I do not believe he's as good as advertised. I think he's had tremendous talent at quarterback. Even Jared Goff, who was the first pick in the draft, is a good quarterback. If you want to give him Kai Detmer, give him Corey Detmer. You want to impress me, do something with them. Give me those guys. Don't give me the best of the best. Matthew Stafford, first overall pick in the draft. Like, give me some spam and make fried chicken sandwiches, and then be impressed. You're getting the best cut of all the meat, and you're like, oh, he's a great cook. About that. I mean, he could be good. I'm not saying he's not good, but I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you're good because it's funny. We get off candidate because he came off the Shanahan tree because he was working with Shanahan. He was a passing coordinator, I think it was. So Shanahan's real. His dad. It's fun. It's fun that. But when you look at time, I think DeSean Jackson had his time ripped apart. I think it was if he stayed here, and I'll tell you this pre-show, I might get in trouble for this, but you know what? It's the way I feel on this one. With that gang report that came out and that thing in people I talked to, like, just in passing, like, because he had that return back with the Eagles that second time go around. So I started snooping for a story and just looking around, talking that. And from what I heard was so far, like he knew people, but it wasn't to the level of he's actively in it. So that's what I'm sitting there like, that ruined, I think, his legacy with the team.
There's a cultural
because he got traded to Washington, what have you, and we know what happened. So I look at the thing, you look at it with him being a two-time, he made the first person in Pro Bowl to be named to two different positions as a wide receiver and as a punt returner. You look at the way he was on the marquee, he was on the NFL at the time, because everybody talks about how Sunday Night Football was the marquee broadcast that comes on every week. He was on the face, like when you see the intro, he was walking around. Yeah, Faith Hill or Carrie Underwood, whoever singing, you see him walking out and all that stuff. He was part of that. That's how much the league believed him. That being said, I look at say, I know it's still young and it's going to be people saying, oh, you can't do that. I still look at guys like AJ and Devontae still up there. They're not to his level yet. I still believe him. Like, quick, in my opinion, he was that thing. And then I know it's a whole bygone era, Harold Carmichael too. He's in the Hall of Fame. And they weren't throwing that way, but he's in the Hall. So, and then you look at LeSean, you get those highlight plays, you see the jukes, and you mentioned like Bears hands up. I think Jameer Gibbs can be that level too. And I look at the way he jukes, it's sick. I look at the way he can pass the receive, and then again with Chip Kelly, kind of cut him short. Now, LeSean, I think some of his off the field stuff with him too. The party, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You don't know. Yeah, that wasn't a good look at all. But I think overall, like you just look at the position as a whole. Steve Van Buren, I think he deserves a mention because he's back there. But look at the other running backs that came through this thing. I just think LeSean was that guy. Saquon had a chance to supplant him, but I think for right now, you set the record for the franchise rushing record. You had the franchise rushing title. To me, to me it's LeSean. He's better.
I forgot about Saquon. Saquon has another. I actually think Saquon will have a good year this year. It won't be 2,000 yards, but it'll be an amazing year. Ricky Waters was a running back who's worth a mention. Keith Byers is a running back who's worth a mention that should be included in there.
Well,
I
Montgomery,
mean,
sorry, I forgot about him.
yeah, you can have Whopper Montgomery. I don't think he's in the class of those other three guys. But I get what you're
Westbrook
saying.
too. I forgot. So him too.
I
Now
was
I'm
gonna
sorry. This name's popping. It's like, whoa.
I was literally just about to say Brian Westbrook needs to be
My
mentioned in
bad,
that
bro.
conversation too, because he was the guy that predated LeSean and he allowed LeSean to run with the freedom because Brian Westbrook was a shifty back too. There is no comp to DeSean Jackson. He is the greatest Eagles wide receiver of all time. When Jalen Hurts retires, if Jalen Hurts retired today, he would be the greatest Eagles quarterback of all time. The body of work matters. The success in that body of work is more important to me. Sean Jackson, the comparison is the only comp is Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens played, I want to say 30, fact check me on this. I want to say 30 games as an Eagle. But even in those 30 games, he was never he had that big run against Denver. He was never the deep threat or never the teams did not have to change their whole their whole defensive philosophy for Terrell Owens. They could change certain coverages. With DeSean, they had to change the whole philosophy. And you say, well, what does that mean? If you're a bend but don't break defense, right? That was your defense. That was the Vic Fangio style. You were a bend, don't break. You changed everything for DeSean because you didn't want to break or bend. So you tilted coverage over there. You had, what was it, single safety high. You pressed on man coverage. You actually gave him the underneath stuff because so I want people to understand. Let me take some more. Here's a phrase that Dan Patrick you can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. And the premise behind that is he's so good that we know he's going to get his points. We just don't want him to get 50 on us. The reason why I say DeSean is it's much closer, and obviously I'm going to go with Shady because I just think that Shady touched the ball more, so that's why he can say that. But the reason why it's so much closer than you think, teams were willing to concede losses to DeSean. For instance, they were willing to say, we'll give him 10 yards. We just don't want to give him 50. Think about that in the NFL stance. We're willing to give up a first down, but we're not going to give you a touchdown. To one guy. Like they said on this play, they're going to run this. You got to back up something you can. That's insane, bro. That is insane. Like that's not, and that's I'm not jerking a chainer. That's how Deans played DeSean. That's how they played DeSean all the way up until he retired. Another thing is DeSean played with Michael Vick. Michael Vick struggled with wide receivers. Roddy White was probably the only wide receiver Michael Vick instantly connected with. This is not a bash Michael Vick segment, but Peerless Price happened. Peerless Price happened in Atlanta. Yeah, Algie Kumper happened in Atlanta. Chad Lewis, what's the other tight end? Zach Ertz. Those guys happened with Michael Vick. Jeremy Maclin. How good would Jeremy Maclin have been if he didn't have Michael Vick? And that team was, everybody talking about how potent that team was. It was potent because of DeSean Jackson, LeSean McCoy, and Michael Vick. That's why I was potent. I'm going to give it back to you on this. To me, DeSean is a Hall of Famer. Is he first ballot? No. Is he second ballot? Probably not. But when the smoke clears, the horses leave the barn, and it's all said and done, and you look back at the last 2 decades of football, you will mention the name DeSean Jackson multiple times. When you mention Randy Moss, when you mention who there was another deep threat in the NFL at that time.
Steve
I can't.
Smith.
There you go, Steve Smith. When you mention those guys, Chad Johnson. When you mention wide receivers that changed the game, you know there are three guys with touchdowns of more than 50. The top three guys in the NFL history touchdowns of more than 50 yards or more. And then I'm just gonna walk away and give back to you. Number one is Jerry Rice. Number two is Randy Moss. And number three is DeSean Jackson. Floor is yours.
I disagree with the whole premise of the he couldn't do what with wide receivers. I think part of it was Vic's fault before he was suspended. He went to jail and stuff like that. I think he didn't take the game seriously. I think when you look at what he did when he had Andy Reid, when he sat behind McNabb, and you saw the way he started to figure out those defenses and start to really apply himself and do the things that a quarterback needed to do. We saw that the Macklins and what he was able to do with that offense. I think it was more of a it just to me there was some issues. I think especially 2010 that you had to wait. He had to start behind Kevin Kolb, and they invested a lot in Kevin Kolb. We all know what happened with him with the head injuries and stuff. Later on in those other years, I think injuries really played a role in that offense. And then when Chip came, that is I had so many hopes. I think once that happened, they weren't humming, but they were humming at first when everybody figured it out. And he didn't adjust. We saw what happened there. So I think that offense really could have been Super Bowl quality if they had a defense to run around and they were still remained healthy. They were really, really explosive. To a man, they'll even say that. They know they were that explosive. I look at the thing and just think, I think with DeSean Jackson, with the Hall of Fame, I think they're going to have Steve Smith has to get in first in order to open up for DeSean Jackson because Steve Smith
Have
did
they
the
ever had a
same
two
thing.
wide receiver class?
I think they have. I can't remember. I think there's been.
Say
I think
Chad needs
this
to
one
get
might
in
be too.
first too. Now people think
For who?
Chad. Oh, I'm sorry, Ocho
Oh,
Cinco.
just like, yeah, Mr.
People think of
He
him
has a good name as a
as
kicker.
a jokester, as Chad was a bad man. Chad was nice with us. Chad Johnson was phenomenal wide. He's like, all jokes aside, Chad Johnson was one of the best in his time period. And he did it with quarterbacks that, I mean, you can argue about Carson Palmer, number one pick in the draft. So he should have played with McVay. He probably, could make McVay the next Vince Lombardi. But I he didn't play in an organization or with a quarterback that was known to take over the league. So, I definitely feel like it was one of those things with DeSean Jackson that I think you would say he had a tremendous Eagles career, right? I think you would agree with me. And you also would agree with me that we both agree with this. He left meat on the bone. He was the greatest Eagle wide receiver of all time, and he left meat on the bone. He was one of the greatest deep threats of all time, and he left meat on the bone. So I am I those two guys and what Chip Kelly did to not just to the franchise but to the city. But it's their own fault because you mentioned the name Kevin Kolb, and then we'll go from here. We're gonna transition to another topic. But you mentioned the name Kevin Kolb, and the reason why that name is funny to me is because they gave Kevin Kolb Donovan McNabb's position because Donovan loses twice to the Cowboys back to back weeks, and they get rid of him. They finally got McNabb weapons, and they got rid of him. And it made me think about John Elway because John Elway gets Terrell Brandon, he gets Ed McCaffrey, he gets Rod Smith, he gets Shanahan's system, they get a good defense, and he wins back-to-back Super Bowls. And he was a shell of the player he was at that point. He could barely walk. He got Shannon Sharp. He walked like this. If you had allowed Donovan to just give 2 more years with DeSean, Macklin, Chad, and I think Ertz was in there at that point, just coming in, and LeSean, they would have won at least one Super Bowl. In my opinion, they would have. They would have because they were headed that way. The Cowgirls loss was an awful the whole air guitar thing. Oh Lord, but yeah, that cost them. So that was the end of it. So I'll give the final word to you. I'm gonna say it is LeSean, but not nearly as big as he thinks it is. And the only reason why I would give it to LeSean is just because LeSean had more opportunities, so therefore there are more plays in your head embedded in what he's done.
Yeah, you mentioned meat on the bones. Yeah, you mentioned meat on the bones, but he still is eating that plate. You know, you got that overzealous like bus boy that comes out and is like, "Are you finished?" Oh no, sorry, yanked from him. That was yanked from him. In all honesty, because he just didn't want
It
to deal
was.
with.
Yeah, it
He
was.
didn't want to deal with Chip Kelly. Didn't want to deal with him at all. And we eventually saw with the same. You can say, and in fairness too, you can say the same with LeSean McCoy. He didn't know how to deal with him, so he traded him for Kiko Alonso, straight up. And I still love the. I forget who told the story, but it was a great. It was
Oh
some
God, I
podcast or like
forgot about
a
Kiko
segment. So
Alonso.
yeah, yeah, with the whole. And the person said, "Oh, we're trading Kiko. We want Kiko Alonso for Sean McCoy," and it went straight up. And they're like, "Yeah." They said, I want to say maybe it's Jeff McClain Inquirer with his podcast with that one. Maybe that's where I hear it. They said they ran so fast and said like 30 minutes later, whatever, like, yeah, you got a deal. Look what LeSean did when he was up at Buffalo too. So
Yeah.
and more and more I think about it, you can make the same argument for LeSean too, saying that he got his career cut short because of one man. And it's a lot of what ifs. It's
Yeah.
sad.
And
It's a lot of what ifs. What could happen?
it's frustrating, and I don't want to sit and talk about it all day, but Chip Kelly, it's not just Chip Kelly that I have an issue with or that I always have an issue with. It's always going to be the interest Chip we trust guys because they're still among us. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't want to go too extreme. So I won't use that analogy. I'll just say that they're like they walk among us and they should be held accountable for gaslighting this foolishness. You know, I want to call somebody out, but I'll wait till the platform gets bigger and this conversation comes back up because she was the poster child for the Chip Kelly and Chip We Trust fandom, and they gave this guy who had never won anything. Like he had never won anything. He hadn't won a college football title. He hadn't won a high school football title. He hadn't won a game of checkers. Like he hadn't won anything. And they gave this sucker carte blanche to make decisions that impacted Hall of Fame careers. And it changed the trajectory of franchises. And remember, they pushed Howie's look, its story goes on and on and on. I'm not gonna go back into it. So next week we'll go into our free agency show. And speaking of foolishness, you're bullish on this. You think the week of tampering that starts on March 1st is ridiculous. I'm telling you as a father and as a husband, that week of tampering helps because we don't make the decision. This is like, we're going to give it to you like this. When LeBron James was going to Los Angeles, right? And the Sixers were trying to get him. I don't know if you remember this. The Sixers were trying to get him. And
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, and the reports were that LeBron considered going to Philly because he wanted to play with Ben Simmons, he wanted to play with B, blah, 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 blah. Right? But he didn't like Brett Brown. But then it came out that his wife wanted Los Angeles and his boys wanted Los Angeles. So his wife, before free agency started, had already gone to LA, picked out schools and houses that she wanted to move into. Before you laugh, but it's before free
I
agency
remember
started.
that.
I looked to my wife and I told her, I said they're going to LA. And she said, yeah, because if she's picking schools there. When they were talking about Philly, they sent a friend of the family, an associate, to go check out Philly schools. Tampering matters because that's the week your wife is going to go pick out a real estate agent. She's going to go pick out the school where the kids are going to go. So, because to you, it's like I'm going to play wherever I want to go. But where your wife wants to go, she's going to let it be known. And she let it be known months ago. So, when she let it be known months ago, now the tampering week is where they can legally say, okay, what's the deal, baby? All right, I like that deal. I'm going to fly out to Calabasas and go look at the schools and see what they got. I know Tyreek Hill is still single. Tyreek Hill is still single, so it won't make a difference to him. But your offensive lineman that you're looking for, your defensive lineman, the big guys that like to eat, yeah, tampering matters because they're the ones that their wives are out right now picking schools. Floor is yours.
And see, the funny thing is this: in all earnest, in all honesty, in earnest, it's going to start next week when everybody's at the combine. Because just for anybody who hasn't been or like seen that scene, not only a lot of stuff, everybody focuses on the workouts and everything else. a lot of the stuff happens around 9, 10 p.m. at night, all the
Yep,
way
when they're
through
at
up
the
to 4 or 5
bars.
in the morning. Because
Yep, when they're at the bars.
it's a it's a balancing act. I can tell you firsthand, it's a big balancing act. You're walking red eye, and that Starbucks that's down in Indy, you can see some stuff there, and that comes in clutch because you're already drinking coffee trying to get for the night before. But you'll see some agents maybe bump into some GMs, have those light off the record discussions about, hey, that lost it. That sets up what happens. You see with the extensions that are going to come out. I mean, guys
Yeah.
like George Pickens,
He got
David
tagged. Pickens
Mulligetta.
got tagged.
Yeah, yeah. They're thinking about, yeah, but they're going to try to. If the Cowboys are smart, say what you want there. If they were smart, they get the extension done ASAP so they can get more room to operate and have that room. Because $28 million.
Well, they just signed their Cowgirls just signed their running back, right? I don't know the numbers, but I
Yeah,
know they just signed their running back. Yeah,
yeah.
they don't. I wouldn't be
They have
surprised if they go after Tyreek Hill. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wouldn't be surprised if they go after Tyreek Hill. You know,
CD and George going like, yo, what are you doing here?
I'm gonna I gotta end the segment or end the show, but I'm gonna tell you this. I know I heard it from an agent's mouth about one of the I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna say I know that those deals at the combine that get started are initiated at bars at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning by guys that are running your favorite NFL team that are strong drinkers. And they drink like people say like a fish. I don't know. I don't say drink a fish, but I will tell you that they drink, and the agents come with an expense card ready to get them every drink they want because that's when the deals are made. So yeah, it definitely does. All right, Chris, good deal, good show. If you like this, that's it for this episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk. If you like this episode, make sure you share, subscribe, comment, whatever your podcast platform allows you to do. He's Chris Franklin of NJ.com. I'm Kwame Fisher Jones. Until next week, we appreciate your time and year. You be easy.